Hello, everyone. I see some faces filtering in. Thanks for coming. We'll get started here just in a few minutes. Quite a few attendees today, so we'll wait for y'all to log in. Welcome to the Golden Bear Advising webinar, our first one on degree requirements and some tips for the final assignment. We're real glad you're here. Oh, we just hit the 100 mark. There's 100 of you beautiful people out there. Thanks for coming. Glad you're here, not only at this webinar, but also at Cal. Thanks for coming today. Okay, I see numbers slowing down a little bit. We're at 104. Maybe we'll go ahead and get started. We've got a ton of material to get through. So I'm just so pleased you're here. Like I said, you have now made it to the first webinar of GBA, which is Golden Bear Advising. Go Bears! Thanks for coming. This webinar will be on L&S degree requirements, and also we'll give you some tips for your final assignment that you're going to do for GBA for us. So thanks for being here. Really, really glad that you SIR'd into Cal and that you're part of the team. And we are your welcome home here at College Advising in L&S. So thanks for being here. I see a raised hand. I'll just say at the top that we're going to be using the Q&A function and not the chat function. So I just wanted to kind of welcome you again. Thanks so much for being here. I'll hand it over to my colleague Armand to introduce himself, and then I'll introduce myself afterward.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tim. Hello, everyone. My name is Armand Liwanag. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a college advisor in L&S. We're so excited to have you all here in our first Golden Bear Advising webinar. And congratulations again, and welcome to UC Berkeley. I'll share a little bit about myself, and I'll pass it off over to Tim afterwards. But just a little bit about me. I'm from San Francisco, born and raised. So shout out to anyone from San Francisco, the Bay Area. However, I did go to college at UC Irvine in Southern California. So shout out to folks from Southern California. When I was at UCI, I pursued my major in psychology and social behavior with minors in education and Asian American studies. And then I eventually started working in the college access space, working with high school students in applying to colleges. So similar to what y'all just did. And finally getting into college. And then I eventually, after a number of years, started to pursue my master's degree at the University of Maryland, College Park in Student Affairs and Higher Education. So shout out to those outside of California. I did a little out-of-state moment in the East Coast before coming back to the Bay Area, where I worked at SF State and then eventually at UC Berkeley. And I've been at UC Berkeley for a little bit over a year now. And as I mentioned, I'm a college advisor working alongside Tim and our lovely colleagues here in the room. And a fun fact about myself, my colleagues know this about me, but I'm a huge Beyonce fan and I'm definitely part of the Beehive through and through. A fun fact is that I went to 3 of her shows for her last Renaissance concert, which brought my total Beyonce shows to a number of 9 total. So definitely a true Beehive, but also working at Cal. So excited to share a little bit more with y'all, but I'll have Tim share a little bit more about himself first.
And we are so pleased to have Armand in our office. He's been here a year, but it feels like he's been here forever. It made such a huge impact. Really, really great advising here. Good team and a good colleague to be presenting with today. My name is Tim Cahill. I use the He series. I started off in higher ed in the study abroad space. Actually, I used to run study abroad programs with professors and take groups of students to various different countries, and then moved more into the advising space. And I'm happy to be at Cal here since 2017 already. So I live remotely in Seattle, and I do college advising and project management here in the office. Let's see. Fun fact about me, I grew up in Kalispell, Montana, which is the same place that Michelle Williams came from, the Hollywood actress. We did not know each other, we're quite a few years apart, but she comes from the same place that I come from. And my pathway to here, mostly at the University of Washington and working in the dean's office and working with career space and study abroad space, and then now in the college advising space. So Thanks so much for being here. We really are glad you're here. I'll move on to the next slide. I also want to introduce our amazing colleagues that are in the background here doing chatting. So today, we do want you to ask questions. We do want to interact with you, but we won't be doing it in the chat space. We'll be doing it in the Q&A space like most webinars. So do utilize that Q&A space. They'll be responding to some of your questions there, and then they'll vocalize some of the main themes that are coming out, and we'll do some questions at the end out loud as well. So please welcome Jesse, Giovanni, Rachel, and Sharon, amazing advisors in our office who were kind enough to donate their time today to help out with questions. So please use that Q&A function. So what are we doing? What are we up to today? Well, first of all, we are interested in listening to you. We're interested in hearing your questions. We're interested in kind of reflecting with you and connecting with you and letting you know that L&S is your home base, right? We are here for you. All of you, for the most part, are coming in as undeclared students, so that falls solidly in our lap, and we really want to see you once the GBA period is over in sessions to talk about your dreams and your goals. So today, specifically, what we're up to is we're going to kind of help you to understand what is expected of you from the perspective of the college. So as college advisors, there's a set of things that we're monitoring, courses and units that we're looking at that are separate from, but have some overlap with major requirements. So we're going to be hoping to give you a clear understanding of L&S requirements, both units and courses. The second thing is we want to help you to help us figure out what you've done already. So we're going to teach you how to utilize the final assignment to assess what has already been done of those degree requirements that I described. So help you learn ways that you can assess that progress. And then also, the last thing that we're up to today is we're going to give you some tips and some tricks for how to do that final assignment. June 25th, y'all, that is when it's due. So you want to make sure and go through the modules and B courses and do that final assignment so that we can give you some feedback on it and help you build a fall program for yourself that's going to work out. So those are our three goals today, is to help you with GBA and help you to understand some requirements. And I'll pass it off to Armand.
Thanks, Tim. And so we're gonna go into our first goal, which is providing an overview of the requirements that you need in order to earn your UC Berkeley degree from the College of Letters and Science. And these requirements are pretty much comprised of four areas or four components. We'll start off with the first one, which is the UC system-wide, the UC Berkeley campus, the College of Letters and Science, and the major specific requirements. These are pretty much required courses that you need to take that satisfy those various areas. The other component is the unit requirements and restrictions, in which there are minimum units that you need to complete in different areas in order to earn your degree. The third component being your residence requirements, and these pretty much represent the units that you must earn while you are a student in the College of Letters and Science at UC Berkeley. So these are units that you're earning specifically at UC Berkeley, taking them here on campus. And then lastly, the GPA requirements, which are the minimum GPA requirements that you need for the College of Letters and Science, for your major, etc. And we're going to go into each component in a little bit more detail in the next coming slides. Awesome. So Tim mentioned the final assignment that's due on June 25th. So June 25th, again, that's something that, we really encourage you all to remember and write down and work towards, right? And this is a little snippet of the final assignment in which you're going to be looking at the degree requirements that you have and really starting to determine, have I completed any of these requirements already from previous coursework? And so this is one of the pages, it's part 2, the degree requirements section of your final assignments, in which it lists out the various requirements that we have. And so we're going to start off with the UC system-wide requirements as well as the UC Berkeley campus requirements. And we're going to break this down a little bit more. That way you could determine, have you already completed anything already? And if not, how will you complete it moving forward? And so with this section, you could simply use a drop-down menu to determine if you have fulfilled these requirements and let us know if you believe that you've fulfilled it or not. If you don't know, that's okay. You're literally just starting here at UC Berkeley, so of course it takes some time to determine if these requirements are things that you've completed. But hopefully the drop downs will be helpful, and then you could definitely reach out for us for support. But there's four main University of California University of California system-wide and UC Berkeley campus requirements that we'll go into detail a bit more about. So we'll go to the next one. So we'll start off with entry-level writing. This is going to be one of the first requirements that we really want students to prioritize in your first year. And there's different ways to complete and satisfy the entry-level writing requirement. One of the ways is you may have already satisfied it already before enrolling at UC Berkeley. You may have done so by earning a qualifying score in a high school exam from the SATs, for example, the ACT, AP, IB exams. Those are some ways that you could satisfy this requirement already. Or maybe you did concurrent or dual enrollment or middle college and you've completed a college level English composition transfer course and earned a C grade or higher. That's another way that you may have completed the entry-level writing requirement even before stepping onto UC Berkeley's campus. And if you have not completed it already, that's completely okay. There are various ways to complete it after you enroll at UC Berkeley. One of the ways is through the Berkeley Writing Assessment and earning a score of an 8 or higher. That would allow you to complete the entry-level writing requirement based on that Berkeley Writing Assessment. And it looks like the next one is going to be on Tuesday, September 12th, in case you wanted to sign up for that assessment and take that. And if you either do not earn a score of 8 or higher, or you don't want to do the Berkeley Writing Assessment, that's fine. You could simply take the course College Writing R1A. It's a 6-unit course that satisfies the entry-level writing requirement, as well as another requirement that we'll talk about shortly called the reading composition, the first half of it at least. And that's another course that that's a course that you could take in order to satisfy entry-level writing. And just please note that entry-level writing is a prerequisite to that reading composition that we'll talk about shortly. So we really want you to emphasize this requirement if you haven't completed it already before you coming to UC Berkeley, really within your first 2 semesters. So definitely wanting to prioritize that. Another UC system-wide requirement that we have is the American History and American Institutions requirement. And this is very similar to entry-level writing, where there's multiple pathways to complete this. You may, again, have already completed it already before enrolling at UC Berkeley. So for example, high school coursework, transfer coursework, or a qualifying exam score in an AP exam, IB exam, or SAT. Or if you haven't completed it before enrolling at UC Berkeley, you could also satisfy it in a number of ways after you enroll here at Cal. Some ways would be to complete 2 approved courses from either community college, both of them at a community college, or both of them at UC Berkeley, one from each UC Berkeley and a community college. Or possibly just taking the one class and taking specifically History 137 AC, which would satisfy both of those requirements. So again, a number of ways to satisfy this American History and Institutions requirement. And just a quick note for international students with an F1 or J1 visa, as long as you maintain that status through graduation, you are automatically waived after you earn 90 units. So just something to keep in mind for those that applies to. And the next piece that we'll go over is, I don't know, Tim, if you're able to click next. There you go. Thank you so much. Is American cultures. So this is a requirement that all UC Berkeley students take. It's required across the campus. And to be frank, this is actually some of the courses that are my favorite that I've taken when I was an undergrad. And American cultures are really about developing a deeper understanding of race, culture, and ethnicity in the context of US society. So really, this is how I got to learn a little bit more about my identity and my community, as well as other identities in different communities too. And again, these are some of my favorites that I've taken. And so this one, it's a little bit different compared to the previous requirements that I just went over, in which you cannot satisfy them with AP or IB credit or high school credit. However, you can take these courses either at UC Berkeley or through an approved American Cultures course or an approved American Cultures course at a community college, for example. And we have some lists that kind of show what is going to be approved and what's not approved. So that's something you could look into. And just note that these American Cultures classes could also overlap with other major requirements, minor requirements, or even our breadth requirements that we'll talk about as well. I'll pass it off over to you, Tim. Oh, I think you muted Tim.
Sorry, my dog was barking. So now we're off to something called essential skills. So they're called essential, and that might communicate something to you because they need to be taken for a letter grade. So it's important to kind of keep that in mind. But these are 4 classes that are called R&C, or Reading and Composition A, Reading and Composition B. Those together make up R&C. Or quantitative, and then also quantitative reasoning, and then finally foreign language. So what you're looking at now is sort of a sample of what you'd be doing, what you'd be looking at in the final assignment. And as Armand mentioned, each of these blue areas would be a drop-down menu for you to communicate to us, did I satisfy this and in which way? So you may not know, as Armand said, you may not know if you've satisfied this, or the results may be pending on some of these, like you may not have your AP tests back enough to know at this very moment, but that's okay. We just want you to know that these are the things that we're going to be looking at, and there are some interesting features of each of them that I'll go over in the next few slides. So just know that in your final assignment, there'll be a little drop-down menu, and you can say, I've not satisfied this, or I have satisfied this in this way, or in this way, that kind of thing. So I'll move on and get a little bit deeper into R&C, or reading and comprehension, composition. So you can satisfy this in 3 different ways: by grade, by high school exam, or by transfer coursework. A grade of a C- or higher in Part A and B courses taken in sequence at UC Berkeley, that would definitely do it. That's the way that many students do it. And a minimum grade of a C in college writing R1A for 6 units would be the other way to satisfy the first half. So there's 2 different levels of R1A. Armand already talked about entry-level writing, and that can be done through the Berkeley Writing Assessment, and it can also be done through College Writing R1A, which is a 6-unit class that covers both ELW and R1A, so the first half of R&C plus ELW. So that's a 6-unit class that covers that. If you don't need ELW, then you just need 2 4-unit classes that cover R1A and R1B, and that would cover R&C for you. Some people have tested out of R1A and ELW, and they would just pop into R1B in fall, or they could even wait until spring if they wanted to take R1B later. Another way that you can get R&C covered is through exams, as I mentioned. So you could be taking an AP test, and you might not know the results of that yet, but that would qualify you to not have to take that at Cal. There are some of you that are going on to study in grad schools one day, and so there is some wisdom to taking R&C at Cal. Talk to a college advisor about that after GBA is over, to kind of do some program planning long term to see if R&C makes sense to do here and what your other options are in terms of grad schools down the road. And then the third way that you can take care of R&C is transfer coursework. So a C- or higher mark in an approved R&C course at a transfer institution like a California community college. You can use assist.org to identify those California community college courseworks that would transfer in. Make sure that what you're doing is transferable in terms of the type of school you're at. So for example, if you're at a quarter system school versus a semester system school, at the end of the day, what you need is a year. So that could be 3 quarters or 2 semesters. So just keep that in mind. And then this is one of those requirements that does have kind of a clock on it, for lack of a better word. There is a kind of a due date. You want to finish R&C by the end of your 4th semester. And we do place holds on folks that haven't fulfilled that by that time period. And that will set you up really well to start taking upper division courses. So we really want you to get through R&C before you dive into some upper division courses that have prereqs. The other essential skill is quantitative reasoning. So often that's abbreviated as QR. And like R&C, that can be satisfied in several different ways, through a grade, through high school exam, or through an exam offered through the math department here at Cal. So if you're going to satisfy QR through grade, you'd be earning a C minus or higher in an approved QR course at UC Berkeley or a transfer institution. You could also take some testing that would test you out of QR, or you could go to the math department and take a test to test out of something. Keep in mind that QR is something that is a college requirement, but you might actually need some calculus or other things for your major too. So keep in mind that there might be more math that you would do beyond just satisfying QR. The last thing that I'll talk about that's an essential skill is foreign language. Again, it can be satisfied in different ways. If you're earning a grade of a C minus or higher in an approved foreign language class at UC Berkeley or a transfer institution, you can bring that over. If you've done 3 full years in before you come to college, that could be in high school most of the time. Sometimes people do their first year in junior high, but as long as you get to that 3rd year of high school foreign language, a language other than English, through the 3rd year of instruction, then that will cover that for you. And you need to earn a C minus or better at that high school institution. And the qualifying score could also come from an SAT or an AP that sometimes covers foreign language as well. So I just wanted to sort of put it out there that for high school work, we're going to have a unit on campus that's going to be reviewing all of your high school transcripts, any community college work you did, any work that you did at an institution of higher ed. They're going to be looking at your testing units, all that sort of stuff. That unit's called the Central Evaluation Unit. And so that takes them some time. You can imagine there's 4,000 of you. So they're going through all of your records to see what it is that you've covered. And they'll be done with that project in mid-November. So it could be that you won't know exactly what's been covered by the time that you are registering, but that's fine because it's really hard to make a bad choice in that first fall term. The last way that you can cover foreign language is by an exam through a department. Notably, the Spanish department doesn't do these exams just because there are so many Spanish speakers at Cal, but proficiency exams are issued by UC faculty, and you can go to a language department and test out of language if that is something that you feel you can pass.
Awesome. So we're gonna talk about our last course requirements for the College of Letters and Science. Just to kind of recap, we talked a little bit about the UC system-wide and UC Berkeley campus requirements. We talked about the essential skills, and now we're here at the 7-course breadth requirements. And just going back to the final assignment, similar with this, you could select to determine if you have completed some of these requirements. I'll note some differences, I guess major differences actually compared to the other types of requirements that we talked about previously. But these are 7-course breadths. These are courses that we want you to take across a variety of departments, disciplines, fields, just to really have that more expansive liberal arts almost education that the College of Letters and Science kind of grounds itself in. So we have arts and literature, biological sciences, historical studies, international studies, philosophy and values, physical sciences, and social and behavioral sciences. And you'll be taking a course in each one of those. And just as a tip, they're really helpful to sort of round out your schedule. So we really encourage you and advise you to incorporate 1 or 2 breadth courses, especially for your final assignment, but beyond that, really every semester, just to, again, have that more well-rounded and balanced schedule. And how to fulfill this 7-course breadth. So the major difference, I would say, compared to the previous requirements that we spoke about is that high school coursework as well as high school exams actually cannot satisfy these breadth requirements. So these need to be completed by college level courses either taken here at UC Berkeley or at another institution that's granting college credit, right? So that's the major difference, I would say. Another piece here is that only 1 course can be used to satisfy 1 breadth requirement. So as you're looking at courses to talk about or to think about your first semester schedule, you might see that a course could satisfy a number of breadths, maybe I think like SPEM 50 AC, for example, could satisfy like social behavioral sciences. It might satisfy, I don't know, philosophy and values, making that up. It might satisfy biological sciences, right? But you could only have SPEM 50 AC really satisfy just one of them. And then the other requirements you'd have to be satisfied by other courses. So just keep that in mind that one course could only be used to satisfy one breadth. Additionally, there are some additional overlap things to keep in mind. So students may not use more than 2 courses offered by a department or department cluster to satisfy their breadth. So for example, you could only do a maximum of 2 courses from the Department of Asian American Studies to satisfy your 7 breadths, right? You can't do 3 Asian American Studies classes. You would have to choose 2 of them and then satisfy the other breadth requirements through other courses from other departments. They can, however, overlap with a major requirement, a minor requirement, or even American cultures. That is okay for overlap. And then lastly, I mentioned that these courses could be taken at UC Berkeley, but also possibly through transfer coursework. And one of the best ways to figure out if it's transferable, especially through a community college in California, is by this website that's on the slide, assist.org. This demonstrates an agreement that the UC system, specifically UC Berkeley, has with California community colleges, and you'll be able to clearly see what courses if taken at a community college, will transfer over to UC Berkeley as satisfying a particular breadth requirement. So yeah, that's 7 course breadth. Um, Now, transitioning from the course requirements, we're going to transition to the unit and residence components that we talked about in that overview earlier, right? We'll start off with units first, and then the residence requirements will kind of be embedded within this. So again, the unit requirements are the minimum requirements that you need in various areas to complete in order to earn your degree. Remember this number, 120 units that you need to earn your degree at least. So that's a minimum of 120 that you need to satisfy. That's the goal, right? And when you divide that across 4 years, it kind of gives you an idea of what that might look like every semester, for example. But everyone's different, but just keep in mind the goal is at least 120. Out of the 120 units, though, there are a number of units that we want you to satisfy in various areas. So for example, we want students to complete at least 36 units of upper division coursework. And as a reminder, upper division are courses that are numbered 100 to 199. So whenever you see a course that has 101 or 150, that would be an upper division course. So that's 36 units at least. Some of that might actually be satisfied by your major already. Most majors have a number of upper division units that you need to do in order to complete that major, but not all of them reach the full 36. So you might need to take additional upper division courses to earn the minimum of 36 units. And now you'll see the residence pieces, right? So we talked about how in residence means taken at UC Berkeley while you are a College of Letters and Science student. And so out of the 36 units of upper division coursework, at least 18 of those need to be in residence, so taken at UC Berkeley while an L&S student. At least 12 of those units need to be, out of the 36 overall, at least 12 of those units need to be in residence while you're in your major, while you're declared in your major. And then separate from residence, but still upper division, out of the 36 total upper division units you need, at least 6 of them need to be taken outside of your major department or department cluster. So for example, if you're a molecular cell biology major, you'll be taking a lot of MCB classes that are upper division in that department, but you need at least 6 units of upper division coursework that's outside of the MCB major department, okay? Another piece about residence is what we call senior residence. That basically means once you are senior standing and have earned 90 or more units, we require that you take at least 24 units at UC Berkeley in residence in the College of Letters and Science. So that's something to note about senior residence. If you have questions about that, or if you're planning to study abroad, we do have a modified policy that an advisor or our website could certainly answer that for you. And we also have this 1/3 pass grade limit, in which there's a maximum amount of units that you could take as a pass grade. And that's a maximum of 33% of all of your coursework that's taken at UC Berkeley that's counting towards the 120 unit requirement. And again, our website talks about that in more detail, as well as the college advisor could go over that with you too. I'll pass this over to Tim.
All right. Well, that was a heck of a lot of information. We totally understand that we came at you with a whole bunch in terms of courses, in terms of units, in terms of residency. So we want to get you some additional resources just to kind of follow up. I just put into the chat our website, which is a really great resource. Our advising website has been revamped several times in the last couple of years, and it's really a great resource. I would keep the link that I put into the chat there bookmarked just because it's got all of our deadlines. It's got all of our degree requirements. It has the link for how you make an appointment to talk to us after GBA is over. It has all of the links to all of our forms. So it's a really great thing. We're going to record this, so you can definitely look at it again on YouTube. But even if in the worst case scenario, you forgot everything that you just learned, don't worry. You can access this information on our site. It's a really great site. And it has tons and tons of great information on it. So you can look to it for policies, for procedures, like I said, deadlines, forms, and in a lot of resources. So have a look at that for sure. And also, just want to give a big plug to the B courses GBA modules, particularly module number 3. Module number 3 is a clearinghouse for all things degree requirements. So in this module, you can help understand the degree requirements, explore major options, and prepare a course schedule for fall. So that will be the culmination of that will be in the final assignment for you that we'll be helping you with and giving you feedback on. So be sure and look through all of the modules really carefully before starting the final assignment, because a lot of your questions are going to be answered by the module itself. And then you'll be going back and forth through the B courses inbox and through reading announcements to kind of get to know your point person in GBA to help answer some questions. We will not be doing one-on-one college advising appointments like through our website until after GBA is over, so until July 18th. But don't worry, because between now and July 18th, you definitely will have a point person. You have a GBA advisor that's been assigned to you and that will read through your final assignment. You and 150 of your friends will all have this advisor helping you through the GBA experience. And so that's already been assigned. You've already gotten an announcement from them. You can reach out to them via the B courses inbox, and they can respond to you there. You won't be interacting with them by way of their email, their personal Cal email, but you will be using the GBA interface to talk with them. They're going to be giving you announcements over the main front page of GBA and also emails through that inbox. And then the other thing that they're offering is either chat or Zoom office hours weekly. So you can meet with them, talk through your questions that you might have, and they're there to support you. And then on the 18th of July, after GBA is over and after you've gone through some Golden Bear orientation, then you can make one-on-one appointments to talk to us. Major advisors are open to talk to as soon as you want to. So you can talk with UMAs, undergraduate major advisors, at any time, but we're going to hold off on doing one-on-one appointments until July 18th. So I see some questions have been asked and answered in our Q&A. Thank you so much for putting your questions in there. And we've reserved this time towards the end to talk those through.
Yeah, so maybe we could start off with one of our lovely chatters, Giovanni. I don't know if there's any questions that you might want to highlight that either has not been answered yet or has been answered, but would be good to kind of share out. Feel free to let us know, or if you wanted to answer too.
For sure, for sure. Good afternoon. A couple ones that I saw pop in, one that I was about to answer about the final assignment. I guess I'll rephrase it. Will an advisor review and give feedback on the final assignment?
You want to
Yes.
take that one?
Yeah, I could take that. Yeah. So thank you so much, Giovanni. And thank you for the question. Yes, advisors will definitely be responding to and reviewing and offering suggestions to each and every one of your final assignments when you submit. For folks that submit a lot sooner in like the earlier time of Golden Bear Advising, you'll likely hear from your Golden Bear advisor a lot sooner as well, since we don't have that many final assignments that are coming in just yet. So that's a perk of getting it done early, is that you get an earlier time to receive feedback. But for those that receive closer to the deadline and on the deadline, it might take maybe a week week and a half for the advisor to get back to you with feedback as well. But you're certainly gonna get feedback. Definitely look at your Golden Bear Advising final assignment grade and the sort of feedback that the advisor gives you. That way you could craft your first semester schedule appropriately. Tim, did you want to add anything to that?
Oh, I would just say, it's important to think of it as kind of a dialogue, right? It's not graded in the same way you would think of an assignment in high school, right? We're not going to give you an A through an F or something. What we're trying to do is get your thoughts on what your fall is you'd like it to look like, and then we're going to steer you in a direction in case you might have missed something in the module, or in case you're headed into a danger zone kind of area. So just think of us as kind of collaborating with you on your fall schedule, and we'll go back and forth by way of the final assignment.
Yes, and as Tim mentioned, feel free to reach out to us, right? Through B-Course message, through our office hours via Zoom or chat, if you have additional questions about your final assignment. Happy to help you. And that's through your assigned Golden Bear Advisor, by the way. Maybe we could go to Sharon next. Sharon, were there any questions that you saw that you think should be lifted up right now?
Yes, there's a lot of inquiries about how to complete registration, and how to fill up their cart and things like that, if you want to clarify that. Thank you.
Sure. The Office of the Registrar does have some helpful websites that will go for enrollment, and your B Courses module will definitely help you kind of think about enrollment. And you'll have the final assignment to work with to help you kind of think about what classes you want to keep in your like your first choices, your second choices, your third choices. As a first year student, you're probably not going to get your first choice classes. There are people that are about to graduate that have higher priority in terms of enrollment than you. So you'll want to make a backup for your backup. And then in terms of how to actually execute it on the day, there'll be more support for that as enrollment day nears.
Yes, and to add to that, there's going to be a webinar tomorrow from 2 to 3 p.m. It's schedule planning and enrollment tips. So that'll be another good webinar to either listen live to or view the recorded version of that as well. That way you could get some ideas of how to craft your first semester schedule, and then for enrollment day, what tips you might have. Also, all of your Golden Bear advisors will be sending out different announcements, weekly announcements that also offer some tips as well. I know enrollment day one may or may not feel far away. I don't know. It's a little bit more than a month away. But it can, just to normalize any feelings that are coming up, either feel really exciting or really stressful or really confusing. All of those responses and more are totally fine and normal. As Tim said, we are here to support you. Your assigned Golden Bear Advising is your go-to. I believe we'll also have drop-ins that day as well in case students needed to come in and ask any questions and get some support. So we got y'all. Awesome. Let's go over to Jesse. Jesse, what are you seeing? Any questions that you wanted to lift up?
Yeah, I guess a more broader question is, how do folks get in contact with their GBA advisors and how they can, find their office hours?
I would say your first stop would be to log into bcourses.berkeley.edu and log in using your authentication. And then looking at your inbox there on the left, you'll choose the GBA for 2024. And there'll be a number on your inbox probably that'll say 1, and you'll have one message from your GBA advisor. And then also go to your announcements page on that B Courses, and you'll see that there's already an announcement there that'll lead you through when the office hours are, what the Zoom link is, how to get a hold of people. Did I miss anything? Yeah, that's a really good first stop, B Courses.
Yes, yes. Rachel, anything coming up on your end?
Yeah, I've seen a couple questions about students who've been really proactive and have submitted their official transcripts from other alternate community colleges or even their high school, but yet they mentioned that they still see an active hold on their Cal Central. I know one main factor is that to definitely rest assured that they have a lot, or the central evaluation unit here at Berkeley, they have a lot to get through and a lot of scores to review. So just remain patient. But if there's anything else, Tim or Armand, that you would like to mention, feel free to do so. Thank you.
Armand, do you have any thoughts on this one?
I think, yeah, definitely emphasizing what Rachel shared around totally understandable for things to come up, like questions or concerns around that. But yes, definitely be patient, please, as the central evaluation unit gets through them. I would also say transcript wise, I want to say that if there's like a number of weeks in which you've submitted your transcript, or you know your transcript has been submitted, but it hasn't been reviewed, I believe you could. There's like a website, and Tim, I don't know if you have the website, but it's you could talk to your admissions advisor possibly to check in about that as well in case you have any admissions related questions that include the transcripts. And then on another note about transcripts, Tim mentioned this earlier, but if you have any community college coursework that you're submitting official transcripts for, it might take the central evaluation unit possibly a whole semester to review, evaluate, and process that coursework. So it might not be reflected in the system as that you've satisfied a particular requirement yet. So don't be alarmed if by December you see that you have an outstanding requirement that you know you've completed from other coursework. That's the case for all incoming students, both freshmen and transfers. So it just may take a whole semester for that to be processed. Tim, was there anything that you wanted to add to that?
Well, I did put into the chat the information for Central Evaluation Unit. That's a useful site to look at. I also gave the link for NSS, which is New Student Services, in case, like you said, like Armand said, you have sort of like admissions or new student kind of questions. Do know that Cal Central will surface some holds for you that may or may not get in the way of your registration, right? You might have a hold on Cal Central that is something to pay attention to and something to take care of, but won't get in the way of your being able to sign up for fall. So I hope that's a little bit of a comfort for you. And like Armand said, it's going to be until about mid-November for you to know fully from the Central Evaluation Unit what work you've done and how it's been credited and assessed on your academic progress report. But fear not, because it's very difficult to find a bad choice. If you're looking for lower division classes in that fall schedule that are interesting to you, you're taking it for a letter grade, and you're passing it, you're getting already great stuff. You're getting units, you're getting grade points, you're getting probably prerequisites towards your major of interest. You're probably getting some breadth out of it. So don't worry if everything is not mapping exactly on. I think your first semester at Cal is not necessarily the one to try and optimize, right? You're just trying to grab the things that are most interesting to you and that will provide you some value. And you may, like I said earlier, not get the exact priority enrollment that you want and the exact set of classes that you want. But as long as you're in 13 to 15 units and they're lower division and they don't have a huge amount of prerequisites around them that you haven't already fulfilled, you're golden. It's hard to make a mistake in that first term. If you're following that module 3 and our advice, you're going to find classes that'll be useful and fun for you, I swear.
Love that advice, Tim. Definitely reassuring. And we have some more time for questions. So I'm gonna go back to Giovanni and see, Giovanni, have you seen anything that's coming up for you that you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, let's see. Let's go with in a couple double major simultaneous degree questions. So maybe just some clarification on the difference between a simultaneous degree and a double major.
Yes, we love to hear the excitement to sort of find different ways to, really take advantage of your academic and other experiences here at Cal. So I would say the two major differences between a double major and simultaneous degree is that a double major would be two majors within the same college, so within College of Letters and Science, whereas a simultaneous degree will be taking two majors across different colleges. So it might be a major in College of Letters and Science, and it might be a major in Rausser College of Natural Resources, right? So that would be a simultaneous degree because you're earning two degrees across two colleges, whereas a double major will be through the same College of Letters and Science. And they're very similar in regards to policies, slightly different processes, at least on the College of Letters and Science. And definitely reach out to a college advisor, especially after GBA, to talk about what that might look like. And we also encourage you to, begin planning early to see, is this feasible? And really reflecting also, is this really the right pathway for me? Can I expose myself to these various disciplines in other ways, right? Do I need to do the double major and simultaneous degree? Can I just take courses here and there? Can I do extracurricular activities, research, things like that? But I'm glad you're at least thinking about it right now because it could at least give you some goals and some pathways and guidelines for your future next steps.
I love all that. I love all that. Yeah, the thing that I always say about sim degrees or double majors is just make sure you understand what it is and make sure you love it, right? Because you're committing, you're all in. The Letters in Science, the College of L&S just offers a Bachelor's of Arts. Other colleges offer Bachelor's of Science. So you would walk away with a BS and a BA if you were to get a sim degree. You need one major before you have two. So you'd be working towards, establishing and declaring in one before you work on the double and before you work on the sim. But I really want to echo what Armand says. Do some program planning. Start getting out your pencil. You can erase a pencil. Get out your pencil and start doing your program plan. What if it looked like this? What if it looked like this? And you could do that with us. You can do that with another college. You can do that with a major advisor. That's all fun. So talk to us, mid to late July on those one-on-one appointments. But you can start talking to major advisors right now about what that might look like. We have some great program planning tools on our website under forms and petitions. So have a look at that too.
Awesome. So we have about maybe 9 more minutes, sorry, of Q&A. So we'll bring it to, I think it's Sharon next, if you have other thoughts or questions that are coming up for folks.
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
In the middle of writing. So I'm getting a lot about AP scores and what covers for reading comprehension. If you guys can kind of talk about the AP or refer that website on how sorry, middle of writing, but how reading comprehension A and B can be covered by specific AP test scores.
Yeah, I had put in the chat before our main page.
Yeah, perfect.
And on that main page is our degree requirements page. And under there, you can go to R&C. And it looks like for high school exam scores, there's a whole lovely table that outlines everything. So for example, if you did the AP English Literature and Comprehension and got a 4, that would cover part A of R&C. If you got a 5 on that exam, that would cover part A and B. So have a look at our degree requirements page that I just put into the chat. Lots of different ways to get that done.
Yes, yes. And thinking about first semester planning, right? Knowing that AP exams might not come out, the scores at least might not come out until after enrollment begins. Just want to give y'all a heads up. Really important to have backup options for various courses. If you know that you did earn a certain score on an AP exam, for example, but it's not in the system yet, unfortunately, you might be blocked from enrolling in the subsequent course, right? So for example, if you know that you've satisfied entry-level writing, but that score is not in the system yet because maybe your AP exam score didn't get released yet, or yeah, again, it hasn't been sent to UC Berkeley, you might not be able to enroll in reading composition part A yet until that score is available. Or if you know you've completed reading composition A, but that score is not available yet, you won't be able to do reading composition part B until that score is in the system. So you might just need to enroll in that course late and so have other options in the meantime, or you might just want to wait for the spring semester, and that's okay too, because you have some flexibility in time. Yes, there's a timeline in which you need to take it, but there's still flexibility within that timeline. So remain flexible, ask your college advisors for support, but letting y'all know that ahead of time, that way you're not surprised if that happens on July 18th, I think is when you all enroll.
Yeah, I think that your mental health will be rewarded with flexibility in this first term,
Yes.
because there's just going to be some unknowns for sure. You're like that gas station thing that gets filled with air, you just kind of got to go with the flow a little bit. And like Armand says, it's not the end of the world if you don't know which R&C you're in by the time that you need to. Keep in mind also that there is, your phase that you're going to be in, but then you'll enter into the adjustment period later. So during the adjustment period, that'll be later down the road. You could maybe add in a class. There are tons and tons of R&C classes at Cal. So it could be that you could slide into one of them during the adjustment period as well.
Thank you, Tim. Let's see what Jesse has. Jesse, any questions coming from students that you want to talk about?
There's a specific question about the Haas School of Business and if folks could take business classes as a first-year student.
Yeah, there are a limited number of classes that you can take. If you're very, very serious about Haas and you really want to explore that, I would definitely go to the Haas website and look at their online advising that they have. I think UGBA 10 is a very common class for first-year students to take. There's a timeline to get into Haas. There's an application process to get into Haas. So you would benefit, I think, if you're at all interested in Haas, from knowing that, one, it's a very competitive process, but two, there's a lot of great information online to look through. And yes, you could certainly sign up for Math 16A, for example, and start your calculus from the perspective of how Haas wants you to do calculus. You could start that UGBA 10 class, which is a lower division class that's open to all, even if you're not in Haas. That would be a great foundation as well. Know that these classes are, like UGBA 10, for example, is a fairly difficult class to get into, but give it a shot. Identify the moment, the hour, the day of your enrollment and make that be the first thing. If that's your first priority, make it your first priority. If Chem 1A and 1AL is your first priority, do that very first thing from your shopping cart the moment your enrollment opens up. So you will have access to some UGBA classes. Please avoid upper division classes in UGBA.
Yes. And I think there's a slight modification to the prereqs. This is like hot off the press not too long ago, but I think it's going to be now UGBA 10X that you're going to be looking for. I might have, yes. Okay, thank you. I was like, did I imagine this? But yeah, UGBA 10X is the new prereq for Haas School of Business. And yes, you could definitely incorporate that into your final assignment. That way your college advisor could be mindful of that as they're reviewing your projected grades or courses, sorry, for the fall. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I just said excellent catch.
Oh, yes, got you. Teamwork. Let's see what Rachel has. Maybe this might be the last question that we'll answer verbally at least.
Yeah, of course. And I apologize that this question has already been mentioned. Yeah, like answering and responding to a bunch of those chats, but a lot of inquiries, a lot of eager. I mean, it's definitely awesome about just the declaration process for majors and whether or not kind of like what the timeline is, and if students are expected to know what their major is right now, and if so, should they be looking at declaring? And my whole concept is you have plenty of time to decide what your major is. There ultimately is no rush in doing so. Most students, they don't have a strong idea necessarily of what their intended major is, and that is totally okay. You could always go, starting your first semester, you could always go and speak to your intended major department and start program planning early, build relationships with your intended major department, learn about, a variety of experiences, including research opportunities or ways to get involved, such as clubs. But the great way to do that is just by reaching out to your intended major department. And again, you could start doing that, as soon as your first semester to really program plan accordingly, meaning kind of like map out the rest of your time here at Berkeley. And that way you feel comfortable, and that way what is expected of you, your remaining time here at Berkeley, and when, just making sure that you could be able, to declare in a timely manner.
Love that, Rachel. Great advice. I'm also putting in the chat another resource, thank you, Michelle, about exploring majors. This is a good website and resource to utilize just to get some tips and guidance on how to explore major options. One, I think all letters and science students that come in as a FROSH student, as a first year student, come in as undeclared, right? And so you may have your intended major already, but we really normalize exploration. Like that's the point of the College of Letters and Science, is that we really encourage you to explore your various interests. Everyone here is multifaceted. Everyone here has various interests, and we want you to explore them. And so, yes, you might have your intended major, you might have several intended majors, but we encourage you to take your time and explore. Now, there is a timeline, right? And I don't want to say that like don't make progress. Like, we want you to make progress, but just know that you have support in order to make that progress. And that could look differently. That could be just looking at the academic guide to see what majors are out there. It might be meeting with a college advisor to talk about your questions, or just like, I don't know where to start. That's okay. That's still making progress. So make progress in whatever way makes sense for you and is helpful for you. And we definitely want to support you in being able to determine what makes sense for you to earn your degree in a timely manner.
For sure. I echo all of that. That's really, really, really good advice. We don't start really worrying about you until you've hit 90 units in our undeclared. So that gives you a lot of leeway. Obviously, people do declare before they hit 90, but it's okay to explore and to really get out your opera glasses and start looking around, because you might have an idea that you are going to be an econ major, but it's good to investigate, what does econ look like at Cal, right? We have econ in institutions all across the globe, all across the country. What's the lens through which we look at econ here on this campus? Is that the lens that I'm most interested in? Same for psychology, for example. Many people are drawn towards psychology because they want to connect with people. They want to understand their own interpersonal life. They want to understand themselves. And frankly, psych at Cal is more like rats and mazes and hard science. So it's good to understand the lens through which a department looks at a discipline, so that you can make sure that that's what you want to do. And that's the direction you want to go. So you want to get to know who the scholars are. You want to get to know the major advisor in there so they can give you a sense of the vibe of the department. So just be open. You may have these ideas about things that you want, but let yourself be open to surprises and really do spend some time. I always encourage people to just take 13 units in their first term, just because the transition is so huge. But also that frees up some time for you to explore the systems. How do the systems work? Who are the departments? What do they do? How do the deadlines work? How do the application processes work? All of this is really time worth spending.
Yes, Tim, love that advice. And thank you to the chatters for lifting up some of those questions, and thank you students for asking those questions. We're going to wrap up the Q&A portion right now. So unfortunately, we might not be able to get to everyone's question, but we do encourage you to reach out to your Golden Bear advisor with those questions that you still might have, or the questions that might come up after this webinar, in order to get some support. There's also future webinars that we'll be going over. But before we go over that, I want to talk about our YouTube channel. Subscribe to us, y'all. Help us gain some followers. No, I'm just kidding. But we have a YouTube account, UCB L&S Advising. That's where you could find this webinar available in about 5 to 7 business days, as well as the other webinars that we'll have in the coming days, coming weeks. So definitely check that out. And then lastly, oh, sorry, not lastly, but yeah, we have our upcoming webinar, which is our L&S first year pathways. That is going to be right after this at 3:30. And our lovely Michelle will be adding it in the chat in order for you to access that. It's going to be about finding your people, your place, and your passion at Berkeley. And again, it's learning more about the L&S first year pathways program. But again, thank you all so much for joining us and for engaging. All of your questions were excellent. And for those that we haven't been able to answer those questions, again, reach out to your Golden Bear advisor for support. Thank you to Tim. Thank you to Giovanni, Jesse, Rachel, Sharon, and Michelle for supporting today's webinar. And just again, congratulations. Welcome to UC Berkeley, y'all. We're excited to see y'all in the fall, and we're happy to support you throughout the summer as well.
Go Bears!
Go Bears. Take care, everyone.